Okay, so the purpose of Iron Sharpens Iron is to get at the art of creating culture and what it takes to become a high performer and what it means to be driven by purpose. We want to sharpen our tools by learning with and from others. My name is Brodan Thiel. I'm a certified mental coach and a coach who has a master's of positive education and focusing on coaching from the University of Missouri. I'm the head of teams here at Dynamite Basketball. Today our guest is Bill Disbrow. Bill started coaching at his alma mater, Burnaby Central, in 1972. Then he switched to Richmond High in 1973 and took the team to the finals in 1975. He has 5 BC Provincial championships. In 2009, he was named to the BC Basketball Hall of Fame. His 87 and 88 Colts were voted the greatest team in basketball BC history. Later, he would coach St. George's BC and is currently the coach of David Thompson. He has coached some of the greatest teams and players in our history. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you, Brodan.
Yeah, it's been a while. How you been?
Oh, I'm doing well. It's kind of a different time, but I'm lucky where I live, right on English Bay, and we've had good weather, so it's been not such a hardship.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't we just get started here by having you walk through a bit of your journey and how you sort of got into coaching and playing basketball from an early age.
Well, I won't ever claim that I was a great player, but as far as coaching, and I played at Burnaby Central, and I got into coaching by accident. I had no desire to be a coach. I was lucky to have played for a great coach in Ken Winslade, the fellow that the court is named after at the Langley Event Center. Okay. Anyway, a year or two after I graduated from high school, the kids in my neighborhood were trying out for the basketball team and down at the school, so I went down to watch, and it turned out they said they weren't going to have a junior team. These guys were in grade 10, and so they said they didn't have a coach, and the kids were no good anyway, so they weren't going to bother. And so I said, well, and I felt sorry for the kids, so I said, well, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but I'd come and stand around the gym, and if that helped them to have a team, I'll try, but whatever. And they said, okay, you go ahead. Yeah. There were only 28 boys in the school in grade 10, so we took 14 of them, and started down the road, and I was actually really lucky because it forged my philosophy, because I didn't come in thinking I knew anything. Mm-hmm. I wasn't trying to install a system, or didn't have an offense, didn't have anything that I had. I just wanted to make them look like better basketball players, and that's kind of where it began, and that's worked for me the whole time. Mm-hmm. We had success right away too, so that was nice.
Yeah, so let's just reverse that a little bit. So what's it like growing up in your childhood? Like, basically, like, were you playing sports at all? And what was your household like?
Well, I had a good home life, I think. And I was lucky in some ways and unlucky in others, in that I grew to full size by the time I was in grade 8. Oh, wow. So I was 6 feet and 170 pounds or something when I was in grade 8. Yeah. And so it meant that along the way that athletics had come very easily to me. Mm-hmm. I'd never had to work hard, and that's a common thing for people who are gifted. And I wasn't gifted; I just happened to grow earlier than others. Mm-hmm. But that's a bit of a, it's one of the things that makes it tough for people to excel. Is you got to learn to work hard. Mm-hmm. And the really gifted, or the people who grew early, probably don't ever learn that. And I was one of those. And so I did play. I played football and basketball were my main things. But I wasn't that highly motivated kid. And I wish I had been.
Yeah, so what do you say to somebody that's having early success, grade 7, grade 8? What would be some words of wisdom in that scenario?
Well, I guess one of the things you have to understand that there's other people, if you are gifted, there's other people every bit as gifted or more out there. If you want to be good, there's a saying I have, is that workers win in the end. Yeah. So you may be today better than those other guys because you can run faster, jump higher, or bigger, or stronger. But in the end, they're going to catch you. If they want to, if they are motivated, that guy that's got 65% of what you've got is going to beat you. And so if that's okay with you, that's fine. But if you really do, you can't just give lip service to wanting to be good. If you want to be good, get your butt in gear and get it done. And it takes what it takes. You just have to get it done. You can't hope it's going to happen. If you want to develop a jump shot, then put in the time to develop one and don't give up until you do. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things. But it's hard. Motivation is something that's difficult to change in people. We can alter it a bit. We can move them 10 or 15% in the right direction. but they kind of are who they are by the time we see them in high school generally. And so that gifted kid will always be the one we believe we can, oh, man, we're going to make him turn the corner. He's going to be something.
Yeah.
Does it happen very often? No. It's the tough kid. That's the guy that's going to be the fun to coach and it's going to do a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So that 10 to 15% is sort of where you're saying that you can have, you know, an influence. How would you go about motivating somebody to get that 15%?
Well, I think one of the things is that you make it fun, first of all. They've got to want to be good. There's got to be a reason they want to be good at the game, not just because they happen to have some innate ability. So I think that you try to get them enthusiastic about the game, and you just show them some of the things that people have done. Here's what people that are great have done. I've been fortunate to coach some of the greatest players in BC high school history. I certainly know the stories of the players like the Michael Jordans and Kobe Bryants of the world, and there's patterns there. Yeah. All of those guys are workers, and they were committed, and they did it on their own. You know, there wasn't really even coaches that did it for them. They got it done. And so I'll show them and talk to them about things I've seen people do that have enabled them to get to where they got, what set them apart. I mean, I knew Steve Nash when he was young. One of the great stories I have is about a guy named Akron Eager who tragically died in his grade 12 year, but was one of the great players in BC history, and yet wasn't gifted. But what a worker and what a competitor. And kids can, you know, they'd love to be good at something. They don't know what it takes. They may not be willing to make the effort that it does take, but you can get them excited about it at least for a short period of time with telling them what's been done and what's possible for them. Get them excited about what's possible, because kids have so much potential. And you can't be unrealistic. The short kid that you can tell he's only going to be 5'2" and he's going to weigh 200 pounds, you can't be getting him too excited about it having a great future in basketball. But you can tell them within what they've been given, what is possible. And I think I tend to see the upside of most of that with just about everybody that I come in contact with.
Yeah. So as you're going through, you know, your high school journey and everything like that, what made you drive towards teaching and coaching?
Well, we had very good success. They weren't going to have a team. We had one. We ended up tying for first place in the league. And back then, everybody had teams, and everybody tried to be good. Basketball was different back then. And so I started to think maybe I was pretty good at what I was doing, even though I knew I didn't really have much of a clue in terms of strategies and stuff, but my team was doing good. So I did it a second year, and we had success again. And so I wanted to move up to varsity, and that wasn't going to happen at Burnaby Central. They had a good varsity coach, and there was no reason, you know, that I could think that I would end up being the coach there. So I read when I was at UBC one day, I saw something in the gym, and it said that they were looking for a basketball coach at Richmond High.
Wow. And
so Richmond High was the absolute worst of the worst. They were in our league, and I remembered going out there to play them. And when I was at Burnaby Central, our gym was sold out in season tickets. You know, so we had 500-600 people every night that I ever saw the gym.
Wow.
And it was exciting. We traveled. We took bus loads of people away. When we went to Richmond High, we had to play, and it wasn't a night game there. We had to play after school there because they didn't have the gym at nights. So that was kind of bush as far as we knew, but we went there. And when we played there were 4 people in the stands, and they all cheered against them, laughed at the guys on the court. They had won one game that year, and they considered it to be quite a successful season because they had beaten Steveston.
Yeah.
They said they had smoked cigars in the change room. It was a huge deal, but one game was it. So for me to go there, I wasn't very excited about it. It took me a long time to decide. I actually went out and drove around in Richmond and saw all the basketball hoops and driveways. I thought, that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
And then I went out and I was talked into actually meeting the guys and trying to run a tryout. And of course, as soon as I do that, I'm hooked. You know, I was there, and I was there for the long haul. And we had a great season to start. The first season was a very good one. So it was fun that way. And then I was hooked. And our principal said to me, he said, you know, we've been so happy with what's going on there. We went from 4 people in the stands to our first sellout the first year.
Wow.
And I really worked hard to promote games. I always did. Thought it was important for the kids to have the experience I had in high school. And the principal came and said, you know, we can't can't guarantee you'll be the coach for very long, because if a teacher comes along that wants to coach, we have to give it to him. So why don't you go into education and get your teaching degree? And I said, I don't even have a teaching major. What are you going to do? He said, we don't care. We'll hire you anyway. It was back in those days. So I went off to Simon Fraser and got my teaching certificate and went in and started teaching and stayed there for 1,000 years.
Yeah. So how do you go from, a one-win program to all of a sudden in 75, you guys are in the BC finals?
Well, I think it all comes from passion. I mean, I was really passionate about what I did, and had great relationships with our players, and we just put in an awful lot of time. And my focus has always been just trying to make them better players. And that's all I knew. I was never the greatest at strategy. I mean, I try. I still try. It's not who I am. You do your best. But it started to work, and guys fell in love with the game very quickly. And there's athletes everywhere.
Yeah.
It turned out that there were at our school. Our first year, after they won one game the year before, we again finished in a tie for first place in our league, which was now the Vancouver League, which was a good league. And I think we had 7 or 8 games that came down to the last minute, and we had managed to win all of them at home. So that's why that atmosphere built. Yeah. All of a sudden, it was the most exciting place in the world to be in. And kids didn't have as much else to do, So and our guys were popular in the school.
Yeah.
So then, we started to fill it up, and that became a huge thing. So now every kid in the school, it felt like, that was an athlete wanted to be a basketball player. Yeah. That was the thing to do.
That's basically key, right? In any school building, right?
Yeah. And
so as you're, as 75, you're going to this championship. Was there like players that were transcending in that time that sort of elevated you guys, or was it just everyone buying into what you were sort of doing and everyone working together?
We had, obviously a very good group of guys, but we had one guy who was being recruited quite heavily. Ended up going to Simon Fraser, Gary Emerson, and did well. Had a good career. He was about a 6'6" guy who could score. And back then, 6'6" was like 6'8" now. So he was a big guy, and so that helped. But we had a good surrounding cast, and they were really good friends. Everybody hung out together, and they did everything together, and they were the social center of the school. I mean, everything happened around the team. I tried to make sure that we had school dances that took place after games and stuff, so we could get everybody out. And and as I say, then all of a sudden that's the coolest thing to be in the school, is to be a basketball player. And we came in, we started coming in mornings and putting in 1,000,000 hours, and we played all summer. We did everything. And so, you get pretty good. And I guess it was the third year. I didn't remember when it was, the third year. Yeah, we made the BC final.
Mm-hmm.
And it was.
So just building from that, so your third year at Richmond, you guys are in the BC finals. And in that moment when, you didn't win the championship, were you, grasping onto this saying, like, we got to own this because, we may never be back? Or were you seeing something that's come down the line? Like, obviously in the next 23 years, you win 5 provincial championships and you're back there another 9 times, right? So were you projecting that something like that would happen? Or were you saying, like, I got to own this moment?
The moment was very surreal to me. I was still very young. To be playing there in front of a sold-out Agrodome in my early 20s was kind of strange for me, and I had to keep pinching myself to understand that it was real. I did feel like we could get back there. It took a few years because the talent level wasn't quite as good the next couple of years, but we were building towards that, and then it became big in the feeder schools. All of a sudden, basketball, which had been nothing in the community, became a big thing at the feeder schools. Now we started having better guys coming in and better prepared and stuff. And I always tried to make it the biggest thing possible. It's one of the things I believe is that we should try to make that year of their lives, as much as possible, my goal is to make it the best year of their life. I realize that other things are going to happen that are going to be bigger. They're going to get married. They're going to have kids, all that stuff. But I don't do anything that isn't saying this is going to be the best. We're going to make this the best it can be for you, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be exciting, and you'll have memories you'll never lose, and friendships that will last your lifetime. And so And there's no such thing as a rebuilding year to me.
Yeah.
Not 1 year is ever a rebuilding. That's so unfair to kids. They only get there. That's their grade 12 year.
Yeah.
Well, you better give it everything you have to be as good as you can be that year as a coach.
Yeah.
Because they only get that year. Yeah, I get to come back. But so I think through that commitment that I had and that passion that I had, and I'll come back to one thing I think that's kind of been my philosophy all the time. So this will come into maybe some of your later questions, but my whole philosophy is around making individual players better. That's just about my whole thing. And so I've studied how does that happen? What sets the good player apart from the average player, the great player from the good? What are the things that they do? What are the actual physical movements that they have that are different? Can we learn those? Can we teach those? And then guys get excited because they come to practice. Every day they come to practice, I hope every kid thinks they got a little bit better. I didn't plug them into a system. I said, you're going to get better today. And I think that guys really, really liked that. So it became unbelievably big to be a basketball player at Richmond High. It really, really did.
Yeah, so there's two things I'm hearing right now. Is one of them is that you say like the team with the best player is going to win as opposed to the team with the best system, right?
Absolutely. The game is not X's and O's.
Yeah. Was that something you came by, or was that something you just you thought of?
No. It came to me naturally because, as I said, I didn't want to be a coach. It was never my goal. I didn't come in there with any plan. I remember thinking, that guy's shot doesn't look right. Do I know why it's not right? No. But I'm going to watch film. I'm going to watch good players. I'm going to try to figure it out and then try to help that, make them look more like basketball players. I still remember that. I've got to make you look more like basketball players. Even though I didn't understand all the reasons that these things worked, they did work.
Yeah.
And then I started to learn what they were and be able to put that together. So it wasn't a plan. It was just through doing it on the spot, learning as I went, and then having a lot of success with it and having players be so happy. I mean, I've had over 200 guys go on to coach. Wow. So they were happy. It doesn't mean everybody was happy. It doesn't mean there's never been a kid, but the vast majority had it appears to me, had a wonderful experience, which was the goal.
Yeah. And so in this series, something that's come up, constantly with coaches that we've been talking to is this like the dichotomy of whether you're investing in the players as opposed to like the tactical side. And it sounds like what you had a lot of success in and why your program was so successful was because the individual and the well-being of the individual. That's
a great, I was hoping you'd bring that up because I think that the terms that I use for it, and I got it from someone else, I don't remember who, but coaches, there's a sliding scale of who we are. At one extreme, coaches, it's transactional, and the other end is transformational. Obviously, transformational sounds more wonderful.
Joe Ehrman, I think. I read his book in my master's program.
Okay. Who was it?
Joe Ehrman. He's an NFL coach, or former NFL lineman.
Yes.
Who's high school coach. Yeah.
I think that's probably where I got it. So, and a transactional coach takes what he has today. He looks at that group of kids. He decides what offense they should run, who should play what position, whether you're going to press or whatever you're going to do. So it's strategic. And in the short term, it's the best thing you can do. If you have a team that I've got to coach next week, and I just got them Monday, we got to play on a tournament on Saturday, or 2 weeks from now even, probably transactional is the way to go. However, you're still going to be dealing with almost the exact same kids by the end of the season in terms of what their abilities are. I look at it completely differently. When I look at a group of kids or I watch them play for the first time, I see who could be good. What could they be? What could they turn into? Honestly, that's all I think about. And I tell them. I tell those kids that exactly what I think they could be. And I know, and I'll say to them, I know some of you aren't going to have that great passion to be that, but this is what's possible for you. And I do see the brighter side of it, but it's not phony. I really believe that those things could happen. So for me, I'm completely at the transformational end. Maybe not completely. I try hard to have an intelligent offense. I try to do things that make sense strategically or tactically, but I know that in the end, the transactional coach can win in the short term or can win sometimes, but the transformational will have teams that overachieve all the time. Now, maybe that's not good enough to beat that transactional coach because he's just got better players. But to overachieve, you have to be transformational, I believe.
Yeah. That's solid gold right there. And I think that's the direction that, sports is definitely trying to push, trying to go now, with all the research that's out there, obviously, behind well-being and things like that. So
I've been really lucky in that regard, in that I had to develop my own philosophy because I didn't have one. Yeah. But I've been exposed to some of the greatest coaches in history. And then I've also had affirmation from what really successful coaches are doing now. Steve Kerr is one of the guys I love to watch his teams. But Pasha said to me, you had positionalist basketball 30 years ago. And I'd never really thought about it. Yeah, I did. I honestly, if you brought me on here and you wanted to make me look like a dummy, you'd say, what's a power forward? I don't know what a power forward. I honestly don't. I'm not just saying, I cannot explain what a power forward is. Is he a player?
Yeah.
If you can play for me. I don't care about positions. I have no interest in positions. I never have had, or at least not for the last 30 plus years. It just doesn't matter to me. Who can play is what matters. So I love watching Steve's teams play. The one that's given me another one that's given me great affirmation in what I do is Jay Wright at Villanova.
Yeah.
Because Villanova overachieves every year. Mm-hmm. And they have exactly the same basic core beliefs that I have had for a long time. And it's all about footwork. It's all about control. It's about not sending signals to the defense as to what you're going to do. Those kind of things are things that you can teach every day, and every kid that you help with those things is happy because he got better. He wasn't asked to go here and pivot there and look here and then do this, and his coach is yelling at him because he didn't pivot 22 inches, he pivoted 18. None of that matters to me. It's not X's and O's. It's making them better players and then having fun. Having fun. If you ever seen a player, my favorite player, one of my favorites all time is Steph Curry. Is there a happier basketball player in the world? Has there ever been one that plays with, and I've said it when like five years ago, I said, the guy plays with joy.
Yeah.
He just plays with joy, and I love to watch that. The other guys that had a great influence on me earlier on, and again, you can't try to copy. I'm not smart enough to copy, and it's like presenting someone else's thesis. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to get it all, but I pick up on things. So I've had significant time I got to spend with John Wooden, who many think is the greatest coach ever. He certainly is up there. Yeah. I spent a week with Coach Krzyzewski at Duke, and I was in on private sessions. I got to do everything. I sat with him when he spoke to players individually. It was unbelievable. But I watched, and his practice sessions were identical to what I was already doing.
Wow.
All I got was affirmation. Yeah, he's better at it than me. I mean, he's a professional. He's smarter than me, and everything. But still, the general tone and what was being focused on was exactly the same. Pasha said to me when he was at Clemson and they went to play Duke, he said their coaches said, we don't know how to prepare really for Duke because we don't know what they're going to run. They just play. Yeah. And Pasha said, I've heard that before because that's what teams said about us. And and they just play. So we have quick hitters like Duke does, but then you just play and teach them how to play, and good things will happen. So those have been huge for me.
Yeah, and I've had the honor of obviously being around you a fair bit. And when I was younger in my career, I remember watching your practices, and specifically lots of just playing, right? 3-on-3, 4-on-4, different drills, and just a lot of talking about positioning and different angles and things like that. And I think that really comes through in what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah. And I hope that every kid every day hears something good. Mm-hmm. Something that not only helps them but gets congratulated when they do something right. You've got to. There's times when you're critical. You can say this is why that didn't work, but then you better be able to say this is what you could have done that would have made it better. And I'm a generalist, not a specificist. So what that means is I'm not going to say when I come around the pick and I plant my right foot here and I do this, what should I do? I don't know. Yeah. I know generally how you should play the game. I know that your footwork is the most important thing. I know that keeping your shoulders square is really important. I know there's lots of things, about a dozen things. And if you do those, they will enable you to handle absolutely anything that anyone throws at you. Mm-hmm. And so it takes a while to get those, and some kids pick up on it quicker than others, but they all love to hear those things because they know you're helping them get better. I remember Gil Chung, who's the coach at Brandon, and one of my great players ever, just a wonderful human being. and when we won it, he played with Pasha and Jesse Tupper. And he would, whenever he turned the ball over, he would turn to me and tell me why. Before I could say it, because he would say, "Shut up, coach, I did this." Yeah. And I'd laugh, and he'd laugh. But he knew, and he got better and better and better. And then you can give them the freedom to go and be players. Yeah. If I could coach the perfect game, I would have said nothing. I've done it all in practice. Yeah. It's habit. They understand, and they can just go play and react to anything. Here's a quote that I made for myself a long time ago. We can choose to teach a course, say, and we're going to be under great pressure as to how well our kids do. And that's what happens in sport. There's a scoreboard, and that's the exam. I can try to guess what the questions are going to be and teach specifically to them. So I'm going to design this offense, this defense, and blah, blah, blah for this team that we're playing against. Or I can try to teach the course as well as I can and not give a damn what they run. Yeah. And just be able to say, we can deal with it. Yeah, we're good enough. And again, kids like that. Then they get to know who they are as a team, too. They're not changing all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so if we can just get back to the timeline a little bit, those are obviously wonderful nuggets. We're just trying to speed through, 42 years here of coaching, right? So also, at the time, you're a teacher at the school, right? So what kind of influence is, being, because obviously when you're at Saints and you're at BC, you're not a teacher at that school. What kind of influence does being in the building every day and having these kids in your class, what kind of impact can you have from that?
Oh, I think that's a huge bonus. That's a big edge to have. And, you got to be around them all the time. And those kids would come and see, I'd see them at lunchtime. We went in and opened the school in the morning. Then they came in around after school. We were there at night. We saw them all the time. I had them in class. I'd see them wandering down the hall. I'd stop and talk to them. I mean, that's a really nice thing to have. We had great kids luckily at Saints and at BC, so we still had success, but I think it's better when you're in the school for sure.
Yeah. So if you go back to the timeline now, what was the first year you guys won?
Oh, I'm terrible this way. I think it was the 84 or 85, somewhere in there.
So you've been around the school for maybe around 10 years, right? And then you guys, you finally win. So as you're, going for that first title, what's the feeling like, being at the Agrodome and cutting down the nets?
Oh, it was unbelievable. I remember specifically, telling the guys before they did anything that there was a whole group of Richmond High grads that were sitting together, and I said, you got to go over and point at those guys and thank them. So they did, and I remember that was very important to me and to those guys, because they had built it. We'd slowly gotten to the point where we were, I think, the strongest program in the province. And but it didn't happen just with this group. That took a time to build. But yeah, it was tremendous satisfaction that you'd finally done something. And when in Richmond, it was so huge. You go back and this front page of the Richmond Review, which everybody got. It was front page of the sports on the Vancouver sports page, which kids today don't even know what a newspaper is. That's how everybody got their news. Everybody got the newspaper every day, and we'd be front page stuff. I walked through the mall after the championships, and everybody knew who you were. Everybody, storekeepers, everybody. It was an unbelievable time. Yeah, and the crowds we had. I mean, it was amazing what those kids got to go through.
Yeah, for sure. So as you're building that program and you're saying the crowds are getting bigger, you guys are getting notoriety around Richmond, is it like, I just want to draw a comparison here. So like, is a Richmond Colts like exhibition game or a regular season game back in the day, is that the typical draw of a BC Saints, like every game?
Yes, every game, a little bit more seating capacity well, not really, but we used to jam it. It had a seating capacity of, I think it was either, I can't remember if it was 500 or 700, but it was an old bandbox at a gym. It was short, fixed stands, permanent stands. It was like, we used to call it the loudest room on earth. It was loud. And we used to put in 200 over capacity. And so there was no aisles. At the top, where the last rows were, behind that, there was a sort of a platform. We put benches up there, 2 rows of benches. People would stand on them. We put seating on the stage. The mayor would come to most of our games. Wow. It was an unbelievable atmosphere. The biggest one ever, I'll just tell you quickly, one of the first great player I ever had was Alan Tate, and he ended up being a starter and captain at Oregon State when they were number one in the nation twice while he was there. He played with 7 guys who made the NBA.
Wow.
He was an incredible player, but so popular in the school. And anyway, in his grade 12 year, we were ranked number 1, and I think Steveston was ranked number 2 or 3. We're having a meeting after school, and Steveston Richmond was bigger than Saints BC.
Oh.
I mean, there were parades, there was kidnapping of coaches, there was unbelievable stuff that went on. It was incredible. Mm-hmm. And so one day we're going to play at 8 o'clock that night at home, and I had a team meeting after school, and it was 4 o'clock when we went down, and my room was upstairs, and we could hear all this commotion in the hallway. So as we went down the stairs, our hallway was around 100 and something meters long and wide, and we got to the bottom of the stairs, and it was full, wall to wall, down to the end and around the corner. The game was at 8, and it was already sold out at 4 o'clock.
Oh.
So it's just hard for people today to know how big that was. And Alan became such a big star. A quick story here. I just happened to tell somebody this today. And Alan and I had gone after schools in the summer, we'd gone over to the Dairy Queen or something. And as we were walking back, there was a Western Canadian Little League Championships were on. So a big crowd at the park. And we're walking kind of down the edge of it. And all of a sudden on the PA, it's Alan Tate. And so we look, and they said, "Can you come over here?" They stopped the game, and it's one of the playoff games, full place. They stopped the game to come over so that all the kids from all the teams can come and meet him.
A high school player.
Yeah. And then we went the same summer. He was going to run some camps, and we went over to an elementary school so he could promote it. And he was going to talk to the kids after school. We arrived there at 2:30 or something, and the principal said, "Well, come into the staff room and just wait." As we're there, teachers start coming in, and all of a sudden, all the teachers there. He called all the teachers out of the class, out of their classes, to come meet Alan Tate. And then we went into the gym, and he let school out early, so that they could all come and the teachers could be there. Well, I mean, that's how big it was. It was stunning. So that was an exciting time.
That's amazing. Let's dive into the psychology there a little bit. So you guys, obviously huge crowds, obviously you got a target on your back every team you're playing. Obviously you guys are number 1 for a long time. What's the psychology like as the coach, first of all, who's trying to motivate these individuals who clearly have a lot of notoriety, and then yourself, like what's the determining factor for you want to keep this going for so long?
Oh, I never had any lack of motivation. I think I'm a lot like Coach K in that. I mean, he's still excited about what of course, he's making $7 million a year, but he also is excited. And I was every time it was exciting. I mean, it's a new challenge. It's one of the great professions of all, and that every day is a huge challenge, and every new group, it's a whole new, the personalities are different. The way they fit together is different. It's challenging to figure that out. And you have to know every kid. You have to understand every kid. How do you motivate every kid? It's a challenging thing. And then on top of it, everybody else is trying to do the same thing. So the competition, especially back then, I thought easily high school basketball in BC was the top of the sporting world in terms of coaching for basketball. In Canada and BC, the university level was. I got asked by all 3 universities to go and coach at them, and I thought, I don't want to take a step down. I mean, it was we were trying, and I honestly mean this. As we got better, my goal became to be the best basketball program in the world, and I don't know if we ever got there, but we got. You can't judge that, but we got to where we were getting paid to go to tournaments in the States. We had a shoe contract. We were winning. We took on the best in the U.S. twice. We played the number 2 ranked team in the nation, lost in the last minute each time. We did all that stuff. So we got to be pretty darn good. And why would I move on from that? It was so exciting.
Yeah, for sure. So were those American teams coming up here to play you guys specifically, or did you guys go down?
No. I woke up one morning when I had Ron Putsey and Brian Tate and Joey DeWitt, 3 of the greatest players in history. When I had them, I was thinking in the spring, what am I going to do? We already won the championship as grade 11s. what am I going to do to motivate them? And we've gone to New York in grade 11, we've done a great tour. That we played in what Sports Illustrated said was the toughest league in America. We played 4 or 5 of the teams in that league. So we challenged them. And then for the next year, I thought, what am I going to do? So it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and when I was awake thinking about this, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try getting a hold of DeMatha. DeMatha was the legendary school. If you watch the NFL draft, Chase Young is from DeMatha. There's all kinds of NBA players from DeMatha, coaches from DeMatha. Mike Bray, that's the coach at Notre Dame, is from DeMatha. It's an amazing thing. And so at that point in time, they had 28 years in a row. Every player on their team had received a college scholarship for 28 years in a row.
Wow.
So this was the program in the whole United States. Mm-hmm. And their coach had been written up in Sport Magazine as the best coach in all of basketball.
Wow.
Morgan Wooten was his name. He started the McDonald's All-America game. So here I am, coach at Richmond Bloody High School in Vancouver, Canada, who I know he's never heard of.
Yeah.
And I pick up the phone and I phoned DeMatha High School. And I got a secretary and I said, could I speak to Coach Wooten, please? And she said, yeah. I thought, oh, didn't think it'd be that easy. So he came on, and I was a nervous wreck because I was still pretty young, and this was a huge thing. And I just started babbling a bit about how great it would be, and we'd love to have them come up, and we were going to be pretty good, and what an experience it'd be for his kids. And I went on and on and on. All of a sudden, he said, okay.
Wow.
He just said, okay.
Yeah.
We'll now, I had to pay for it.
Yeah.
It cost me a lot of money to make that happen, but we made it back. But I had to put up the money in the beginning. And so that's perhaps the greatest basketball experience of my life, was that game, and that's just all that went into the pregame, the getting ready for this when nobody gave us a chance. Yeah, I mean, they were number 2 in the nation. Yeah, and it was something else to be part of that.
So when they got here and they saw the crowd and everything, and then they saw how good you guys were, was it a little bit like shock for them or what?
I don't know how long we have, bro. That is one of my great stories, but it takes a little while. Do you want it?
Well, I mean, we got about 20 minutes here left. So.
Okay. All right. So
let's go with it.
Let's fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Because it's a great story. Yeah. So I go down, we get it all happening, and nobody can believe that we're doing this. I mean, it's really big news here that we're going to have DeMatha in. And so I go down to, with another fellow, we went down to pick them up at the Seattle airport. And as I'm waiting for them to come out, I see a bunch of guys coming off the plane, big guys, and they've got top coats on and got briefcases and everything. And I'm thinking this is a professional team. They're mostly black guys. It just looks like a professional basketball team or something. And then I see on the bag, DeMatha Catholic. And I go, oh my God, that's their team? Because I remembered thinking before I made the call, I've got Ron Putzi, Brian Tate, Joey DeWitt, who are great players, but I have no idea if they could even make DeMatha. I don't know. I don't know what that takes. I don't know. I just know they're really good. So I'm pretty stunned by what I see. So they have 5 guys over 6'8".
Wow.
They have a guy that's the number 1 rated player in the nation, who's 7 feet or 6'11". 2 years later, he's all rookie team in the NBA. So I'm pretty worried about this. I ride up with Morgan Wooten all the way, and I drive him up, and we talk and stuff. But anyway, when we get here, one of the things I'd said to him was, it's a little unfair that you will get a chance to see us because we're playing Steveston while you're here, because they came for a week. Yeah. I said, and then I don't get to see you. And I said, you're already the powerhouse. It's not really fair. So I said, I'd prefer if you didn't come to the game. And he said, okay, no problem. And I had asked him if he would put on a coaching clinic too. And he had a contract with some speaking group. He was a high school coach back then, making $400,000 a year. Wow. With his camps and stuff. He prided himself on being the lowest paid coach on the East Coast because he made $200 or something as a coach, but he made it all through these camps and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so he was big time, Yeah. And so he said okay, but he said he wasn't allowed to do a clinic, but he could run a practice and coaches could come and watch that. His contract wouldn't allow him to have a clinic, and so we said okay, and I said, and I won't come to that. He said okay, fair enough. I don't go to your game, you don't come to that. So then we go to the place Steveston, and it's sold out. The doors are locked.
Wow.
And there's a banging at the door, outside door. So one of the teachers opens it up and looks, and it's the DeMatha team. They're all billeted with our guys. So they've shown up. And these guys walk in, and there's nowhere to sit, but they walk in and they're going to stand, so I don't remember where. But the whole crowd stands up and gives them a standing ovation. And I'm thinking, God, we're the home team. We're the guys. But everybody's crazy over this team. And it's all over the newspaper, all over this. It's called Mission Impossible, that we can turn down the mission and all this stuff. And so they watch, but also in walk the coaches. Mm-hmm. And they video. Mm. Morgan Wooten didn't come, just like he said. But I was not a happy camper.
Yeah.
Okay, so we played this game, and now I know they've got us. So I let them know. Yeah. We had to go to a talk show that night, and a limousine came and picked us up. And we were taken out, and it was on Dan Russell's Sports Talk, which was a big show back then, and it had one of the biggest audiences they'd ever had. Yeah. And the board was lit up with questions and people calling in and stuff. It was great. Yeah. But I told him on the way down, I said, that really ticks me off that you did that. I wasn't there. Well, all right. And then, so I said, well, I'm coming to practice. So, and before that, I should say also, we'd held a joint practice at UBC. Mm-hmm. All the media came, all the television stations, radio, newspapers, and we went side to side there. And I noticed one thing that really bothered me. My guys were watching them because they were just dunking the heck out of everything. They were huge and they could play. And so I knew we were in big trouble because I know that guys, that's what other teams did to us. They watched us warm up and I knew it was over. So, and I got mad at our guys and I yelled at them at that time, which I rarely did, and just trying to get them motivated. And then anyway, so we come back, he runs the practice the next day. And our guys are in there watching. And I said, they're going to watch. And I said, you're not allowed to watch. Why not? I said, because you're already intimidated and it bugs me. Get out of here. So they all went and sat in the student lounge. Then I watched for a while and I thought, you know what? They're high school players. Mm-hmm. They're not pros. Those are high school players. The newspaper and everybody said, no way Simon Fraser or UBC could beat them. Yeah. And then, so I went back out and I went to our guys and said, you're allowed to come back in and watch. Just be quiet. So I sat with them and they were quiet. And then I started to hear them whispering. And I remember the first comment, I think it came from Brian Tate. And he said, did you see what that guy did? And did you see what he did? They're not that good. Yeah. We can beat these guys. I heard that. And I thought, wow. And then when we went into the game at UBC, biggest crowd ever at UBC, and we came out and crowd was 90% in favor of DeMatha. Mm-hmm. And after about the first quarter, even less, it completely switched, and they knew British Columbia could play. Yeah, we might beat them, and it went to the last minute, and it was so exciting. So that was a lesson for me, and it taught me more about attitude and how you see things. Because after watching the UBC thing, we had no chance. But when they got to see, they were making fundamental errors that we didn't make because it was all we worked on. And they said, we can beat these guys. And then they went out and tried to do that. They didn't come in intimidated at all. So that's pretty rare for a BC team against the top U.S.
Yeah, so in the last minute, was it just that you guys couldn't withstand like the constant pressure or the...
No. It was a very simple thing. What happened was we got down, I think it was 6 points with 2 minutes to go. Mm-hmm. And I said to my assistant coach, I said, pretty good, huh? Look what we've done. Mm-hmm. I said, but are you satisfied with this? He said, no. I said, let's go for it. So we put on a man-to-man run and jump defense. The name of it was the DeMatha Blitz Defense. I didn't name it. That was the name of it. Oh, okay. I had read it in a book, and we were using it. So that's the only press we had that could get us into a double team situation any time. So we went to it. Of course, they practiced against it every day. Mm-hmm. So we ran it the first time, and they got the ball to their 6'11" All-America, dunk. We have to do it again. Now we're down 8. You got to go again. You got to go double again, dunk. Mm-hmm. So it looked to people like, oh, DeMatha didn't try it at the last minute. Like hell, they didn't try. Yeah. But we just didn't have anything. And so we ended up losing by 12 or whatever it was. But their coach, one of the greatest compliments ever, at the end of their season when they finished ranked number 2 in the nation, and he was quoted as saying, the best team we saw or played all year was a team from Canada.
Wow, that's Colts.
So that was pretty damn good feeling.
Yeah, totally.
So we were getting where I wanted to be, and I knew we'd made it. I mean, never know who you've got any given year, but we were pretty damn good.
Yeah. So, Bill, when you said, can I tell this story or do we have enough time? Like, that was just the most amazing story I've ever heard.
I knew I wanted to tell it.
You know what? It's all good. So, like now, obviously, you have 5 championships at Richmond with the Super Colts. Is this like, say you have 5 children, is this like a situation where you can't pick your favorite, or is there one that means more to you?
Yeah, that is very hard because every one of those teams, what set them apart was how hard they had worked, how much they were together. They were, so I loved all the guys in that team. I had, it would be very difficult. I remember one that really hurt me when it was over. I remember when it came down towards the end, Alan Tate's younger brother was Brian. Brian was in grade 5 when Alan was playing for us, and he used to get passed up and down the stands on people's hands overhead and stuff, and came to all our practices, wanted to play with us when he was in grade 7. I would let him play at open gyms, and we had amazing open gyms, pros, national team players, everything. So he was the biggest part ever of Richmond Colt basketball. And Putzi and Joey DeWitt, that team went undefeated, won it in grade 11, undefeated grade 12. I played, in Canada, lost to DeMatha. Mm-hmm. But when that came down to the last 5 or 6 minutes of that game, I started to get emotional because I knew this is over.
Yeah.
These guys that I love so much, that I've been through so much with, I want to win. I want to win, but is it worth this? Can it go on? Can't we play another one or whatever? It was very sad. So I was that one. I actually wasn't happy at the end all that much. I was unhappy, in some ways, So there's a lot of emotion when you get that close to people. When you put in that much time together, we're in it together. It's not me coaching them. It's us doing something together.
Yeah, and then was there any years out of the, the championship runs that you had that you thought maybe, this should be one, and then it didn't end up being one?
Yes, for sure. I thought we should have won a couple more. We made 5 other finals, so you always thought you could win those. The first one, no, we were probably in over our head. The first one, we'd never been there, and it was tough. The other team had a whole bunch of guys that were, guys used to be able to play in grade 13, it used to be called. They used to be able to come back and play another year. The first 2 that we lost, I think, to North Delta and to Stevenson, both of them were, I think, 4 out of 5 starters were guys that were returning grade 12s, and we were all grade 11s. It was kind of, so those, you didn't really have a great chance to win. But there were some, like Andrew Mavis's team, that was one of the great teams I've ever coached. And I think I got out-coached in that game because it was a strategic thing that got us in the end. But I was too caught up in who the guys were and who I had faith in and stuff, and I probably should have done different. But it's always easy to look back. But, yeah, there certainly has been some that I felt very badly that they didn't get it. Yeah.
So, obviously, you guys had that strong run in the 80s, and then the 90s come up. And in 90 and 91, I think you guys are in the finals both years. Led by Lewis Johnson, who's the co-coach of our program. Can you give us just maybe some Lewis stories?
Yeah, well, Lewis is obviously a great athlete, but Lewis is tough as nails. Look at the body on Lewis now. I don't know how old he is, but he's 40-something, and he looks like he's just ripped, and he looks exactly, it's amazing, and he can still play. Yeah. He's a heck of a competitor, and he worked so hard. We had 3 great players that year. Justin Pedvaiskas, Lewis Johnson, and Brian Scales. And they told me in the summer, maybe it was right after we lost the year before, but they said, we're going to win it next year. And it's guaranteed. They wrote me a note and sent it to me that guaranteed that they were going to win it. Wow. And so I loved those guys. They were, they were awesome. It was, I don't know what I could say specifically. But Lewis was certainly, he was MVP, so he was deserving. Brian Scales was at least as good a player as Lewis over the time. He might have been our best player, but when it came down to it in the BCs, Lewis was already one of our 2 very best and was the best of the BCs probably, and deserved everything he got. But he was great.
So I've heard stories of like you guys losing in the finals that year and then obviously coming back the next year. What was it like to motivate a group that loses in the finals and then a lot of their players are returning for the next year? Like, did you have to say anything or was it sort of just there?
Yeah, you don't have to say very much.
Yeah.
You don't have to say very much. And our guys hate it when any seasons end. And Lewis will tell you this. I'm sure he'll remember. I know I mentioned it to Brian Scales, and he remembered. When their grade 12 year came to an end, they had given so much, and we had done so much together, that when it came down to the last practice ended. And I went down to the PE office, and I came up. I wondered why none of the guys were coming down to the change room. And they were on the floor crying.
Wow.
For 45 minutes. All of them laying on the floor, hugging each other. Because practice, that was our last practice. You know, that they had loved it so much that was their last practice. So they weren't going to go down easy. I mean, Brian Scales in the final had pneumonia.
Wow.
He shouldn't have been playing. At halftime, I said, nobody's ever been more competitive human than Brian is. He used to go completely, he's already a white guy, very, very white. He looked like a ghost. And he was outstanding. He was 6'2", 260-pound post player with quick feet who was a point guard in university. But he told at halftime, I said, he's coughing up blood. You can't play.
Wow.
He would have killed me. I'm effing playing, you know. And he went out there and just took over. It was just, you know, it was amazing. So the toughness that comes with all the work. Did those guys ever miss a morning? No. Did they ever miss a session of anything? No. I mean, we had strict rules about practice you could not miss, but they would never have missed. I mean, there's no way. None of those kids. It was too big a deal. But the more you've given, the harder you've worked, the less likely you are to surrender. And I think we were maybe down at the half, and then they came back and did very well.
So obviously all good things come to an end. So as the years are dwindling by at Richmond High, what is the beginning of the end and what is the end at Richmond High?
Well, what happened at Richmond High was we really had it going. I thought we were going to win forever. But two things happened. One is that the school board decided that they weren't just going to have 3 big high schools. They were going to have, I don't know what it is, 10. I think it was 8 at the beginning. It might be 10. So we were all going to become much smaller. So we didn't have the same numbers. I still wasn't worried about it because with what we had going, that was going to be fine. But the other thing that happened was that we had the whole demographic changed. Our school went from something like 5% Asian kids to over 90% in like 2 or 3 years. It was amazing. And what that meant was, even though there was lots of great kids, they were and we were the academic school. So this was when the Hong Kong situation was happening, and people from mainland China, I mean from Hong Kong, and were moving to BC and specifically to Richmond. And then, so we were the IB school for a population who culturally really, really valued education, number one, and wanted and didn't know what else to do in a new country and stuff. Well, son, daughter, you're going to be tops academically. And so with being the IB school, we had hundreds of kids transferring in, but they weren't coming in to play sports. And so all of a sudden, from every kid in the school wanting to be a basketball player, all of a sudden we had a bunch of small guys, and very few were allowed to be. Lots of them wanted to be. So we had, I think, several years where I didn't cut anybody. We had to take everybody who'd even tried out. This was so different for us. You know, I just took the guys, and we had fun, and we did well, but we couldn't compete at the highest level. I had 2 years in a row where my post players were 5'10" and 5'11". We never had a 6'4" player for 5 years. And so and on top of it, as I say, even the kids that would like to have played sports, they weren't allowed. They were focused too much on their stuff, more than in any other school. They were focused because we were the IB school. So it was hard, but we had wonderful times. I thought we overachieved every year. I think every year we got within one game of making it. But we never got over the hurdle. But we had some great players. We still went on trips every year. We had wonderful experiences. But, we weren't going to be able to compete at the highest level. And I stayed there for quite a few years of that, but I retired from teaching, and I still coached for 7 years after that. And it was just too much living downtown. To run it well, you had to go in the mornings, be there by 7 o'clock. So you fought rush hour coming home. I had to go through rush hour after school to go to practice every day, and I decided that was enough after 7 years of doing that and loving it. But I felt badly that they didn't have the same experience in terms of success. But we still were. I was just as committed to them. We put in the time, and we got better. And a ton of them have gone on to coach and stuff. They had good experiences, but we just weren't going to be able to compete at the highest level.
Yeah, so we only have about 5 or 6 more minutes here, so we can only run through these stories pretty quick here. But I just want to get like a glimpse of what it's like after being at a school for, say, 35, 40 years or however long it was, and then all of a sudden you flip over and you're at BC. And how did that come about?
I took a year off coaching, and BC approached me and said that, and I didn't even really miss it. It was just I just did other stuff, traveled, and then BC approached me, and I went over to say no. I went into the parking lot, pulled in, and on my way up from the parking lot, the principal happened to be walking towards me, and he stopped me and talked to me for quite a while, and he convinced me. And so I walked in and said, yes, I'll do it. And it was a co-coaching situation, which I didn't really know how I would feel about. But wonderful basketball program, wonderful basketball school, great kids. Everywhere's great kids, and theirs were too. And we had great success. I mean, we made in the 3 years, we made a semifinal and a final in the BC. So I was pretty happy with the way things went, but I was not happy with the concept of co-coaching. I coached with John Tagalov first, and then with Lloyd Scrub next. Lloyd had played for me, and I didn't have a single disagreement with those guys ever, but I just don't think co-coaching is a concept that really works. I don't know if I've ever seen it work. So I decided I would move on, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was sitting on a beach in Thailand, and I got a phone call, and this guy said, would you consider coaching at St. George's? And I said, no. I couldn't do that. I mean, I can't leave guys at BC and go over to, and I'm a practice coach. Yeah. So I should have said that. So my first 2 years, I ran practices. And first year, John ran the games. I did a lot of the practice. The second year, I ran practices and ran the games, and Lloyd was sort of an assistant. And then we didn't win it all. I think we lost in the semi, or we lost in the final. I forget which year it was. And then I said, maybe it's your turn. Sadly, he said, yeah, okay. But the next year, I didn't even run practices. And if I'm not running practices, I have no interest in being a coach anymore. So anyway, this guy says, would you coach at St. George's? I said, no. He said, well, he says, this is the chairman of the board. Would you at least meet with me when you come back? So I said, okay. So I went and met with him. He talked me into it. And so I went there, and that was a great experience.
Yeah. And obviously, you had a lot of success here, ups and downs and things like that when you were at St. George's. Sorry, not here. But we have 1:20 left here. So I just wanted to end on, very quickly here. What has been your life purpose throughout all this, and what are you trying to achieve in the next couple of years?
Well, I haven't changed at all. I have just as much enthusiasm as I ever had. I'm at David Thompson now, and we had a rough year because I didn't get to put in the time as a transformational coach. I didn't know I was going to coach, and I only had about 3 weeks of time with them before we were into games, and we just didn't do very well. Yeah. I think next year, if there is a next season, we will be good. I think we will be very good because they're great kids, just like everywhere else. I really love the group I've got. I'm excited about them. So I get pumped up about it again, and I want it to be the best experience of their life. Mm-hmm. And I want them to know that I care about them and that it's about them. It's not about me, and it's not about making them a cog in the machine. They're going to be enabled to be as good as they can be and hear about it every day and celebrate it. When somebody does something well, you say it. In practice, if I see a kid when we've been working on something, I see it happen, I'll stop practice and see that. Look what Jarek just did, or look what whoever it is. With Jarek, I didn't have to say that very often. But others, you congratulate and do that all the time. Kids love to hear it, and it's honest. It's honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Bill, it was obviously wonderful having you on here. I just want to let everyone know that these are going to be available on BC Sports Hub after if you want to watch the whole thing later.